What would you do if the wife you abandoned returned years later, not for love, but as your child's nanny? In Obinze village, the air smelled of red earth, and dreams rarely traveled beyond the dusty bus stop. Ramsy, once a restless school teacher, was one of the few who believed he was meant for more. Every night, he would stand by the broken radio in his mother's sitting room, listening to stories of Lagos, the city where men became kings overnight. His wife, Amaka, never mocked his dreams. She only smiled when he spoke of towers and traffic lights. Just remember, she would say softly, a man who runs faster than his shadow will one day meet the night. Ramsy would laugh and call her an old woman trapped in a young wife's body. When a cousin in Lagos offered him a job at an electrical store, Ramsy left the next morning without ceremony. He promised to return for Amaka once he found his footing. Lagos welcomed Ramsy like a hungry god that fed on ambition. The noise, the lights, the rush, everything he'd dreamed of back in Obinze now roared around him. At first, he swept floors in an electrical store, saving every naira, sleeping behind counters, eating bread with pure water. But Lagos rewards those who learn her rhythm, and Ramsy learned fast. Within 2 years, the shop became his. He bought a car, second-handed, but shiny enough to blind the poor. When people from the village called, he sent money through others, but never spoke directly. His assets thickened with Lagos pride. Even his laughter changed. Then came Titi, beautiful, educated, and dripping with perfume that smelled like power, and said his ends were made for more than wire and switches. She taught him how to hold a wine glass, how to wear a suit, how to forget where he came from. The first time she visited his apartment, she looked around and frowned. "You're too smart for that village wife," she said. "You need someone who fits your level." Ramsy didn't argue. He just stared at her, and something inside him cracked. The part that remembered dusty feet, market laughter, and a woman who prayed before he slept. For months, he sent letters, short ones, filled with stories of lighted streets and endless chances. Then the letters stopped. People whispered that the city had swallowed him, but Amaka refused to believe. She sold palm oil in the market and waited. One evening, a motorbike stopped beside her store. The rider handed her a small envelope. Inside was a crisp photograph of Ramsy in a suit, standing beside a woman whose nails shone like glass. On the back, in Ramsy's hurried handwriting, were 5 words. "I'll explain when the time is right." That night, Amaka couldn't sleep. The moon hid behind the clouds, as if ashamed of what it had seen. The next morning, she went to the church to pray, but the pastor's wife whispered first, "They say your husband now owns the shop he once swept." Weeks later, he told Amaka to wait a little longer. His messages grew shorter, then stopped completely. In his heart, guilt became noise, and Lagos drowned it out with sirens and soft hands. When he finally married Titi, it wasn't love, it was proof. Proof that he had arrived. At the wedding, the pastor said, "What God has joined together," and Ramsy whispered beneath his breath, "And what Lagos approves." But that night, as he poured champagne in his glass, he saw a small moth circling the candle on the table. It burned its wings, fell, and kept flying towards the flame again. Ramsy watched it and muttered foolish insects. What he didn't know was that Lagos was smiling, because pride too has wings, and every flame has its turn. For a while, Ramsy thought he had outsmarted fate. The city that once humbled him now opened its golden doors. His face appeared on posters for his electrical store, and people called him Odogo of Powerline Street. When he drove past traffic hawkers, he felt like a god among mortals. His wife, Titi, became the queen of his new world. Together, they attended church in matching lace, posted smiling photos online, and hosted house parties that smelled of money and noise. But behind every photograph was a truth neither of them wanted to admit. Lagos marriages are built on performance, not peace. Titi loved attention more than affection. She spoke to Ramsy through her phone, not her eyes. When he tried to share his worries about the business, she waved him off. "Don't speak of small things," she'd say, scrolling through her feed. "You are bigger than that." Soon, Ramsy stopped trying. The laughter in their home became thin, like a radio with bad signal. One evening, while sipping wine on the balcony, he saw a couple walking hand in hand along the estate road, laughing like people who had nothing but each other. For a second, something inside him ached, though he couldn't name it. A week later, Ramsy's mother called from the village. Her voice trembled. "My son, your wife Amaka still waits. She says your letter has stopped. Should I tell her you are not coming?" Ramsy stared at the phone. He wanted to explain, but he still walked in wearing gold earrings that caught the lights. "Who's calling you?" she asked casually. Business. He lied, ending the call. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Amaka standing by that old bus stop in Obinze. Her wrapper tight, waiting. The sound of traffic outside began to sound like whispers. Hundreds of voices calling his name in the dark. By morning, he decided he'd send money. Money fixes everything, he told himself. But Lagos, like fate, was already watching, waiting for his payment in full. Back in Obinze, Amaka had learned that silence can be both shield and punishment. When Ramsy's letter stopped coming, she didn't chase shadows, she waited. But the villagers would forgive women who wait too long. Whispered followed her everywhere, at the stream, the market, the church. Her husband has married a city woman. They said, she's too quiet. Maybe she is barren. Each word was a thorn, but Amaka carried them like stones in her pockets. Envy, but never dropped. Her aunt, Mama Nkem, often tried to console her. Lagos changes people, she'd say. Even salt can lose its taste if it stays too long in water. Amaka would only nod, grinding pepper, as if the peso could crush her heartbreak too. One Sunday, a stranger arrived in the village with a box of provisions, milk, rice, soap, and an envelope of money. He said it was from Ramsy. No letter, no greeting, just cash. The villagers clapped, saying, you see, your husband did not forget you. But Amaka saw what they couldn't. The money was not love. It was silence made of paper. That night, she lit a candle and placed the money beneath it. She prayed not for Ramsy to return, but for her heart to forget the sound of his name. Still, forgetting is never simple. A month later, Mama Nkem's house caught fire. The flames devoured everything. Before dawn, the mats, the photos, the life Amaka once knew. When the ashes cooled, she stood barefoot before the ruins, eyes dry. The villagers said it was witchcraft. Others said it was fate, but Amaka said nothing. She picked up a charred cooking spoon, held it for a long moment, then whispered, "If the fire had taken my past, then maybe it's time to meet my future." By evening, she packed a small bag and boarded a bus heading for Lagos, the city that had stolen her husband. She didn't know what she'd find there, but sometimes even pain must go searching for its own closure. Smoke, sweat, perfume, and possibility all fighting for space. When Amaka stepped out of the bus at Ojota, her wrapper was torn at the edge, her sandals dusty, but her spirit unbroken. The fire in Obinze had taken everything, her aunt, her home, her peace, yet it also burned away her fear. Now, she carried nothing but her name and a folded photograph of Ramsy. Creased at the corner, she whispered it once and tucked it deep into her bag. "If I find you," she said, "I won't ask for love, I'll ask for truth." But Lagos is not a city that welcomes the gentle. It tests you before it blesses you. By her second week, Amaka had learned the city's language, the fast shuffle of feet, the bargain of survivor. She slept in a church shelter at Yaba and soaked puff by day. At night, she'd watch the city's lights blink like eyes that never closed. One evening, a woman named Chinwe, a hairdresser with a sharp eyes and a soft voice, noticed her sitting alone by the roadside. Chinwe had lived in Lagos long enough to recognize brokenness that refused to beg. "You don't talk much," Chinwe said, handing her a bottle of malt. Amaka replied, "I talked before, but words don't feed the hungry." Within a month, they became friends. Chinwe helped her find a small room behind the saloon and taught her how to survive the city's cruelty with grace. One night, when rain fell like punishment, Chinwe returned from work with news. "There's a family in Lekki looking for a nanny," she said. "Good pay, but you must look humble. They like quiet women." Amaka hesitated. "Lekki," she repeated. Chinwe nodded. "Yes, the man's name is Ramsy. Ramsy's Electricals. You know him?" Amaka's hand froze on the cup. Water spilled, mixing with her tears. She wiped her face quickly and whispered, "No, but maybe he knows me." Outside, the thunder cracked again. Lagos had spoken, and her destiny had just found her address. That night, sleep avoided Amaka like a debt collector. The rain drummed on the zinc roof, whispering the name she was trying to forget, Ramsy. By morning, she made her decision. If fate had drawn this circle, she would step into it. But if not, as the same woman, she went to the salon early. Chinwe was calling a customer's hair when Amaka said, "If anyone asks for my name, tell them it's Ngozi." Chinwe looked up, eyes sharp. "You're hiding?" "I'm beginning again," Amaka answered. And just like that, Amaka died quietly in a hair salon behind Tejo Osho Market, and Ngozi was born. The next week, she ironed her blouse and followed Chinwe to Lekki. The air smelled of wealth, gated compound. When the security man opened the gate, Ngozi's knees trembled. The mansion looked like a dream she had once been invited into, but never entered. Then the door opened, and there he was, Ramsy. His face had matured, sharper, confident, but she would have recognized him even in darkness. For a second, the words tilted. Her breath caught. "Yes?" Ramsy asked. Impatient. You're the new nanny. Ngozi lowered her gaze. Her voice steady. Yes, sir. He didn't recognize her. Time had rewritten her face. Softening her voice, he only saw another woman looking for a job. His wife Titi appeared at the top of the stairs. Elegant and cold. "You'll start tomorrow," she said. "The children are spoiled. Make them behave. No stories. No village drama." Ngozi nodded. "Yes, ma." As they spoke, Ramsy's youngest child peeked from behind the curtains, giggling. Ngozi smiled softly, though her eyes glistened. Later that night, as she lay on her tin mattress in the servants' quarters, she stared at the ceiling and whispered. Lagos has a strange sense of humor. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. The hunter had become the house help, and faith was just getting started. The Lekki mansion had a rhythm of its own morning laughter, afternoon silence, and night whispers. Ngozi quickly learned to move with it. Light-footed and invisible, that house, servants were meant to serve, not to exist. Titi, the madam of the house, ruled with precision. Every command was sugar-wrapped in scorn. Ngozi, the children's uniforms are not white enough. Do you wash with water or soap? She'd snap. Ngozi would smile softly, reply, "Yes, ma," and keep her secret tucked behind her calm. The children, Ifi and Kosi, adored her. They told her everything, how their parents fought behind closed doors, how their father stayed late at meetings, how their mother sometimes cried in the bathroom. Ngozi listened, never asking questions, her heart heavy with old echoes. Sometimes, while cleaning Ramsy's study, she'd pause before his framed photographs. The same man who once promised her forever now smiled beside another woman. His laughter filled the room, but his eyes still carried the emptiness she remembered. One afternoon, as she dusted his shelf, she found an old wristwatch, its strap broken, its face cracked, her breath caught. The one she'd bought him before he left Obinze. She held it carefully, her tears nearly falling. Just then, Ramsy walked in. "What are you doing with that?" he barked. Ngozi turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "It was on the floor, sir. I didn't want it to spoil." He paused, staring at her face longer than usual. Something about her eyes made his chest tighten. "You remind me of someone," he muttered. Ngozi smiled faintly. "Maybe I have one of those faces." That night, she couldn't sleep. The city hummed outside, but inside her, storms gathered. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, a woman reborn through pain, and whispered, "He won't remember me, but he will feel me." Outside, thunder rolled again, as though Lagos itself approved. For days, Ramsy couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching him. At first, he blamed the stress, late nights, mountain debts, and a wife who treated love like business. But the whispers came at odd hours. A soft humming, a scent he hadn't smelled in years, palm oil soap and rainwater. One night, he woke to the faint sound of singing from the servants' quarter. The voice was low, broken yet familiar. A village lullaby, Amaka's lullaby. His chest tightened. He sat up, sweating, listening. But when he opened the window, the night air was still. In the morning, Titi complained, "You didn't sleep again, Ramsy. Maybe it's guilt that is haunting you." He laughed it off, but his reflection in the mirror looked like a man slowly remembering his sins. Meanwhile, Ngozi kept her distance, doing her duties with quiet precision. But her silence was her weapon. Sometimes, when she passed Ramsy in the hallway, she'd stop mid-step, as if struck by a memory he couldn't name. Her eyes, her posture, something about her spirit, it felt familiar. One evening, the children ran into the living room shouting, "Daddy, Auntie Ngozi knows that village song you used to sing." Ramsy froze. "What song?" "The one about the moon and the palm tree." He turned to Ngozi. She stood there calmly, folding a towel. "I learned it from an old woman in Obinze," she said softly, her gaze steady. Ramsy's voice trembled slightly. "Obinze?" "Yes, sir. A quiet place where people remember what others forget." Their eyes glocked for a second, too long. Titi noticed. Her tone snapped. "Ramsy, we are late for dinner." She pulled him away, but not before he looked back at Ngozi once more, haunted, curious, afraid. That night, as the rain began again, Ngozi sat by the window, humming that same lullaby. In the main house, Ramsy woke with a shout, heart racing. Because this time, he hadn't heard the song in his dreams. He'd heard it whispered right beside his ear. By the third week, Ramsy could barely look at himself in the mirror. Something about his reflection felt wrong. The man staring back had his face but not his peace. His eyes carried shadows, as if someone else were living behind them. One morning, as he dressed for work, he saw a faint smudge on the mirror, like a fingerprint made from mist. He wiped it, but it didn't fade. Instead, the fog thickened and letters began to appear slowly, one by one. Amaka. He stumbled backward. No, this can't be. Just then, Titi entered, wrapped in her silk robe. "What are you mumbling about?" she asked, glancing at the mirror. The glass was clear. The name was gone. He forced a smile. Nothing, just tired. But his hands were trembling. That day, at his office, his mind kept drifting to Ngozi, her quietness, her voice, her song. He found himself watching her through the CCTV on his phone, zooming in on her face as she played with his children. Something inside him whispered, "You've seen her before." That night, he dreamt of Obinze, the red soil, the mango tree, and Amaka waiting at the bus stop. She turned slowly, her face half shadow, half smile. "Did you think Lagos would hide you from me?" she asked. Her voice was soft but full of thunder. He woke up shouting her name. From the servants' quarters, Ngozi sat upright too, heart pounding. She had heard him call her name. Not the name she wore now, but the one she had buried. For a long time, both of them sat awake in separate rooms, listening to the city hum like a drum of unfinished stories. When dawn finally broke, Ramsy stood before the mirror again. The glass was clean, but in his reflection's eyes, just for a second, he saw her and she was smiling. At first, Titi thought her husband's distance was just another Lagos phase. Men get rich, then get restless. That's the city's rhythm. But lately, Ramsy looked different, pale, distracted. He flinched at shadows and sometimes called another woman's name in his sleep, Amaka. The first time she heard it, Titi laughed bitterly. Who is Amaka? She asked the darkness. The second night, when he whispered the name again, her laughter died. By day, Ramsy buried himself in work. By night, he stayed too long at the Nanny, Ngozi. Too quiet, too graceful, too familiar. Titi started watching her through half-open doors. The woman never raised her voice, never complained, never gossiped. Yet, she moved through the house like she owned its silence. One afternoon, Titi asked Ngozi, "How long did you live in the village?" Ngozi folded laundry carefully. "All my life, ma, until Lagos called me." "And your husband? Do you have one?" Ngozi smiled faintly. "He was lost in the city. Maybe he found someone richer." Titi froze. For a second, the room felt smaller. "You talk like you know what that feels like," she said. Ngozi only replied, "Don't we all?" That night, Titi couldn't sleep. The sound of the Nanny's lullaby floated through the vents. The same tune Ramsy had been humming in his sleep. She sat up sharply. "This woman," she muttered. The next morning, she followed Ngozi discreetly as she took out the trash near the bins. She saw the Nanny holding a small faded photograph. A younger Ramsy smiling shyly, standing beside a woman who looked exactly like Ngozi, but softer, freer, alive. Titi gasped. The photograph slipped from Ngozi's hand. Nanny faced up in the dirt between them. Their eyes met. For the first time, Ngozi didn't look away. Her voice was calm, but her words carried thunder. "Sometimes, madam, the past doesn't stay buried. It just changes its name." The city wind howled as if to confirm it. Lagos had begun to remember. The sky broke open that evening. Rain lashed against the glass like it was trying to wash the house clean. Titi waited in the living room, the photograph clenched in her fist, her heart pounding louder than the thunder. Ramsy walked in late, dripping from the storm, exhaustion written across his face. She didn't waste time. She threw the photo onto the table. "Who is she?" Ramsy froze. His eyes widened. The photograph, the one he thought he'd burned years ago, stared back at him, himself and Amaka. "Where did you get this?" he asked harshly. "From your Nanny," Titi snapped. "The same woman you've been staring at like she's your ghost." He rubbed his temples. "Titi, you don't understand." "No, you don't," she shouted. "That woman, she knows you, Ramsy. The way she looks at you, it's not normal." Lightning flashed, illuminating the fear in his eyes. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, Ramsy whispered, "Because she is her." Titi blinked. "What do you mean?" "Amaka," he said, his voice trembling. "My wife from Obinze. I left her. I sent money, then I stopped writing. But she's dead, Titi. There was a fire." Before he could finish, a knock came at the door. 3 slow knocks. They turned. The power went out. The house fell into darkness. From the hallway, the Nanny's voice floated in softly. "Sir, madam, the children are asleep." Ramsy's chest tightened. Titi stepped back, whispering, "You said she was dead." Rainwater seeped through the window. Cracks, pulling at their feet. Ramsy walked slowly toward the door and opened it. Ngozi stood there, drenched, her eyes glinting in the candlelight. She smiled, calm, steady, knowing. "Some fires don't kill, sir," she said softly. "They just purify." Thunder roared, shaking the walls. And for the first time, Ramsy realized the rain outside wasn't cleansing anything. It was morning. The night refused to end. Lightning kept tearing the sky apart, as if heaven itself wanted to witness the confession. Ngozi stood in the doorway, soaked to the bone, her eyes steady. Behind her, the rain fell like applause. Ramsy couldn't breathe. "Titi, go upstairs," he whispered. But Titi didn't move. "No, whatever this is, it ends tonight." Ngozi stepped forward, each footfall echoing. "You left me," she said simply. "In Obinze, I waited until waiting turned to shame. Then fire came for everything. Even my name." Ramsy's knees gave way. "Amaka, I thought you..." Died? She finished for him. No, fire doesn't kill what is already broken. It only changes its shape. Silence swallowed the room. The only sound was the rain tapping the windows like a drumbeat of memory. Titi looked from her husband to the nanny, to the ghost now made flesh, and something inside her cracked. All this time, I thought I was the wife. Turns out, I was just the chapter after her. Ngozi turned to her gently. No, madam. You were the mirror. You showed him what he became. Titi's eyes glistened. She dropped the photo on the floor and walked out, barefoot into the storm, her perfume swallowed by rain. Ramsy tried to follow, but Ngozi stopped him with one quiet word. Stay. He turned back. What do you want from me? She smiled sadly. Nothing. The past already took its share. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the cracked wristwatch. The same one she'd given him long ago. It's still broken, she said, placing it in his palm, just like us. When dawn finally came, the mansion was silent. The servant found Ramsy sitting alone in the living room, holding that watch, staring at the empty doorway. No one ever saw Ngozi again. Some said she left Lagos before sunrise. Others swore they heard her humming that old village song down by the estate gates, fading with the wind. But every morning after that, when the rain clouds gathered, Ramsy would hear her voice, soft, haunting, and eternal. Some stories don't end. Ramsy, they just start remembering.